See, because now I understand priority agenda for 21st century, the same priority agenda I'm bringing here now in the current talk now on bioprospection today. Okay. Yes, I think, friends, you all try to listen this and try to explore later on some of these plants that we should be able to take up for our future bioprospection work, right? Now, I was telling a little more elaborate, I will go. What is this bioprospection? Bioprospection means it is scanning the entire biodiversity. Today, we have enormous amount of biodiversity. I told 18,000 species are there. Some person is, say, for example, is interested in biofuels. Now, his job is to scan which are the best biofuel plants. That he has to scan the entire biodiversity, make a list of such trees which are all said to be good for biofuel. How you do that, I will tell later on. That is shortlisting, prioritizing, or selecting some important tree species or any plant species for a particular purpose. That is one. Now, biodiversity prospecting can be for aromatic plants. Bioprospecting can be for medicinal plants. Bioprospecting can be for lower groups of plants. So you can use this bioprospecting for any of these things. So in other words, scanning the biodiversity and shortlisting species for intensive scientific evaluation. That is number one. At the molecular level, if you go at the molecular level, then we go at the genic level, identifying suitable genes. For say, for example, I told a particular plant has a biosweetener character. Identify the genes for that responsible within the same species. You will identify the gene suitable ones and take those genes. That is one. So as a chemist, if you are seeing, you will go for chemical prospecting. So the same biodiversity, the entire biodiversity will be scanned for suitable chemical, good amount of quality, good quality chemicals and good amount. So that is from the point of a bioprospecting, from the point of a chemist. So he can also do that. So it can do in any way. The gist is we can have species today according to what we want. We can identify the genes, shift those genes, and develop. You can anything you want to do. So I have just given here. Yes, today we can have species made to order. What does it mean is you can take the gene. See, pumpkin, for example, kaddu, pumpkin gene you can take and transfer those genes in tomato. Can we see? Can we make the tomato into a big sized pumpkin like a tomato? Can we? So whether it is possible or not, that is a different issue. Now, shifting gene today is possible. Shifting genes from one plant to other is possible. So therefore, I think this exercise should continue for some time. See, we should play with the genes. Playing with the genes is very important and see what we will be able to achieve. I gave the example today, the biosweetener plant also, making the stevia plant is a biosweetener. It is 200 times sweeter than sugar. Identify the genes, take those genes and transfer it to any plant. You see, for example, tea or coffee plant, and have the nice coffee and tea. Since it is anti-diabetic, you need not add, even diabetes also can take. Now, these are all just thinking. Now, my point is, a technology is there with us. How to use the technology, making use of our bioresources. That is the one. So now, the red one which I have written here, this is the definition I am trying to give everywhere. This is my definition of bioprospecting. What is this? Conversion of traditional knowledge into a commercialized product, making use of modern science is bioprospecting for me. Now, why traditional knowledge has come here? Dr. Khan was telling about the role of ethnobotany in search of newer economic plants, and that should be a priority agenda. Yes, it should be a priority agenda. Now I will talk about this. Conversion of traditional knowledge. When I say traditional knowledge, India is fortunate in having 553 ethnic groups living in forested areas in isolation, and they depend on their surrounding plants for all their requirements. So they, in the course of several hundreds of generations, they have been able to master, or they have been able to identify a few plants for a particular purpose. say for jaundice, this is the plant we should use. This is for a wild edible plant. This is for anti-cancer plant. This can be used. That is the traditional knowledge. So in every tribe, there is a set of medicinal plants used for this. I think that you are all very familiar now, you know. Now, how best this traditional knowledge can be used? Now, my question is, somebody says this is used for stomach ache. Can we immediately go and take that and use it, develop a product? Can we do that? That is now question now. Immediately, that question comes to us. Please understand, traditional knowledge is a knowledge that is unwritten information. There is no textbook available. Unwritten information passed on from one generation to other generation through oral folklore only. Oral folk only. The fathers will transfer that information to his children will again transfer to. So that is how it is continuing, and this information. Therefore, this information has stood the test of time. Hundreds of years it has been in usage. So therefore, it has stood the test of time. So any usage that we record today among the ethnic knowledge is an information that is not developed by one generation. It is hundreds of generations. So therefore, authenticity is attached to this. So the ethnic knowledge is very authentic, that we should take. That is one part. Be very clear on this. Now, based on this kind of ethnic knowledge, whatever is ethnic knowledge, globally, world over, it is not from India I am talking, globally, based on the traditional medicine, 119 plant-based drugs have come, of which 74% are traditional herbs only. So that is the clue for us. Now there is no traditional knowledge. Imagine a situation where there is no traditional knowledge. So you have to go for, what do? From A to Z, you have to go on screening all the available plants. Yes, this is a good plant, this is a bad plant, whatever it is. You have to scan the entire plant. That is what is called systematic phytochemical screening. That you see, in contrast to ethnic knowledge, systematic phytochemical screening is proved to be unsatisfactory. That is, systematic scientific screening is unsatisfactory compared to going to traditional knowledge. Directly you take that ethnic lead, go for product development or bioprospection. So that has proved very. So therefore, I hope you understand the importance of ethnic knowledge. So ethnic knowledge is very much in our country. 550 tribes are there. So enormous amount of knowledge is there. This knowledge is associated with rich biodiversity. So both are there. Biodiversity on one side, ethnic knowledge on one side. Right? Now, this example I told in the morning, so I will skip this. But if you want, you can again see Pentadiplandra brasiliana is a plant. It is a traditionally important plant in Africa. The Americans have gone there, collected this plant and the associated knowledge, ethnic knowledge. What is that ethnic knowledge? The berries, the fruits are very sweet. It is more than 2,000 times sweeter than sugar. So that knowledge they have taken, and today they have developed biosweeteners and earning a lot of money. Now, why all these things? Nothing is going to the Gabon region or the African region to the tribes because one reason. Please understand. After the Rio de Janeiro Convention, the Convention on Biological Diversity, which we call CBD, after the CBD, several things have come. Number one, out of this, one important thing is no country can go and access the biodiversity of another country. Nobody can come and access our biodiversity here without proper memorandum of understanding. There should be all that written agreement should be there. Suppose a person accesses the genetic material from our country and develops a product in his country later on. If so, in such cases, the memorandum clearly says, or the CBD clearly says that 50% of the royalty should come to the country of origin from where the genetic material has come. So in the memorandum of understanding, you can make all this clear. 50% should be there, 40% should be there. That's a different thing. So some amount of royalty should come to the country from there. Here is a case. These people have gone to Africa, and collected this plant, and also the traditional knowledge also they have taken. And since America is the only country not a member of Rio Convention, they are not giving any money. They are the only country, they are not a member of Rio de Janeiro Convention. So therefore, they will not give any money. They say it is everybody's property. Any plant is everybody's property, so they don't want to give anything. So that's why we should be extremely careful with American scientists visiting any country, including ours. American scientists means we should be extremely careful, because it is not only the plant, even a gene is sufficient enough for them to harvest and make whatever they want. So that's why already in the name of the science, many material, large number of plant material have gone from our country, and also the patents have already gone from our country. In fact, many of the microbial samples have gone. So therefore, what I suggest, that with Americans, we should be extremely careful. This is just, I want to tell the example. Now, as I said, bioprospection or utilization of bioprospection in the Western Ghat, in Himalaya, cold deserts could be rewarding. As I said, I showed some important slides also. Each one of these areas is very good. Say, for example, high Himalayas, alpine plants, I told some of those plants having cold tolerant or cold resistant genes, we can harvest those genes and transfer those genes to any common plants or any cultivated plants we can grow there. So that is that possibility is there. So similarly, chemoprospecting in aromatic plants. I gave the example of chemoprospecting from one aromatic plant to another aromatic plant, and merging those plants, and then you can evolve one required quality of essential. So everything is possible. Metal tolerant genes are in Caryophyllaceae, Fabaceae. For example, in mining areas, you want to do some of the afforestation program. You should select species from this. That's why it is easy now to scan the biodiversity of all these families, select species, and you can grow there. So that is exactly what I want to say. Now, then also, the one other problem is we have excellent biotechnologies in our country. Excellent biotechnologies are there, no doubt in it. Excellent biotechnologies are there, and excellent field taxonomies are there. And also well-equipped laboratory facilities are there. With all these things, we have not been able to progress much and bring a product. The one reason I gave is this, that biotechnologies and field taxonomies cannot go hand in hand. That is the problem. So the biotechnologies feel they are a group of elite scientists that psychologically it has inbuilt in them that they are an elite class of scientists working with all sophisticated equipments and air-conditioned laboratories, wearing white coat and looking like great scientists. Whereas field taxonomies, they will be collecting plants in the ditch or in the mountain tops or on the river bank somewhere in a gunny bag and brings the plant, making an herbarium specimen. He never looks like a scientist. So therefore, the conclusion is that they think their science is fashionable and real scientists, and this is no science. But in fact, I tell you, the most fascinating area is taxonomy. Tomorrow I will talk on this. More fascinating area. Now the problem is that there is no possibilities of any collaboration between these two fellows. Sometimes they say, yes, taxonomies, even if I collaborate, what they will do? They will only tell the name, nothing beyond that. Why should I collaborate with him? Telling names also is so important. It requires the experience of 40 years, 30 years. So 50 years experience is required. Then only a person, a good taxonomist, can tell the name. It is not so easy. So because telling the names is simply, they say that's all very important. No, it's not. Taxonomy field, any taxonomist, if he has to tell the name, he has 20 years, 30 years, 40 years of experience at his back. So therefore, that is also very important. What we should do, all right, if anybody comes to you that you please tell a name, immediately you tell the name. There is no value for that. Suppose you do the same thing, all right, you sit here tomorrow, I will tell this name because I have to identify this. It's a very difficult plant, and tell him whole exercise you do. In the end of the day, you say, sir, it is very difficult, you come tomorrow. Again, let him come one more day. Do the same exercise. Once you make all this kind of exercise and ultimately on the third day or fourth day, you tell this is Parthenium hysteroporus, then the fellow feels, yes, taxonomy is very difficult and also it's not so easy. So that this kind of thinking has developed in our minds unless we do this. And our taxonomies are such, immediately anybody asks, you will tell a name. That is, anything that comes for free has no value in this country. So this is why I am telling field taxonomies also should become wiser now. So there are a large number of genes. I told about this one also. Morning I told about this also, so I will skip. Now, keeping in this mind, biodiversity or bioprospection of medicinal plants in different biogeographic zones, I just want to now talk. Now, Again, I will come to Kant's the role of ethnobotany in search of newer economic plants, newer drug plants. How help the ethnobotany will help us in searching newer and newer drug plants. That I just want to say. And also I will say why it is a priority agenda at the end. Now, this picture gives only in India, out of how many species, how many are medicinal plants. 8,500. I have just made a big list. 8,500 species are said to be medicinal. East Himalaya, 3,000. See, but there is no sanctity in this. It could be 8,500, 8,600 also. Every plant is medicinal. Only some of the virtues of the medicinal plants are not known, so we have listed. So it doesn't mean it is a fixed figure. 8,500 is a fixed figure. Don't have that. It is only a rough estimate of so many species are there. Now, in our literature, if you see ethnobotanical literature, or even in the ancient literature, I do not know, I think I will show you some of this. In the ancient literature, enormous number of plants are, numerous plant species, often botanically unrelated, chemically unrelated for a particular ailment is there. Now, please understand, you go for diabetes. In the ethnobotanic literature, go for diabetes. I want to know from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, you survey ethnobotanical literature, and ultimately you end up with a big list of plants, maybe 500 anti-diabetic plants. That is there. Each tribe has a set of medicinal plants for diabetes. Even starting from an onion also, it is said to be anti-diabetic plant. Anti-diabetic, there are so many plants. My question to every person is the same thing. Out of so many plants, all this information has stood the test of time. 500 years, the 500 plants which I'm telling, all of them are very effective, I know. It stood the test of time because they are all ethnobotanical literature. My point is, if I have to develop a product, out of these 500 species, which is the best plant? Can anybody tell? Can anybody tell which is the best one? Whether it is the Rajasthan plant is very good, or Tamil Nadu is very good, or Telangana is very good, or Kanyakumari, which plant is best? Every tribe has its own set of medicinal plant. This is a big problem for us today. This is a very big problem. We do not know which are the best plants for each of these ailments. Same for cancer, same for jaundice. Anything you take is the same problem. We have too many species. Having too many species is a big problem. I hope you understand. Having too many species is a problem. See, there are hundreds of species said to be effective for ailments like cancer, diabetes, jaundice, fever, not only in ethnobotanical literature, but also in ancient Vedic and other literature. So we do not have any list of prioritized species. We don't know which is the best plant. So this is in ethnobotany. That is literature among the published literature on the ethnobotany of different tribes. This one. Now here, Charaka Samhita. Charaka Samhita is supposed to be an authoritative treatise. Charaka Samhita is an authoritative treatise on medicinal plants. And he has listed several plants for jaundice. Now you see the same story. Jaundice, he has listed, these are all the plants he has listed. The Amura, Baliospermum, Citrus, Sisampilas, Garcinia, right? All, next slide also, Acacia, Barringtonia. See, now my question is, how, if Phyllanthus amurus is good for jaundice, how Barringtonia also can be good? How Acacia could be good? Now, this is a question you should also get in your mind now. If A is good for a particular disease, how B can also be good, how C can also be, D can also. These are all unrelated, chemically unrelated, botanically unrelated, phylogenetically unrelated. Unrelated plants are said to be effective for the same ailment. Now, this is from Charaka Samhita. Charaka Samhita is almost 3,000 years old. From 3,000 years old, it has stood the test of time. But in spite of all that, we do not know which is the best plant. I want to develop a product out of any of these plants. Which plant I will take? Whether I take Phyllanthus, whether I take Jasminum, whether I take Barringtonia, is not, we do not know. This is prioritizing, absolutely we do not know. I hope you understand this. Now, in the opposite, for example, in case of diversity of plants in the case of different tribes, ethnic knowledge I am talking. Say diarrhea and dysentery. I just made this for every element also is same thing story. But understand, these are all the plants are said to be very effective for diarrhea and dysentery, right? Which are those plants? Very simple plants. For example, this is Cedium gozava, which we eat daily. What is this plant? For Myrtaceae plant. This is Cedium gozava. It is a fruit which is sold in the bazaar. And starting from that to Alstonia solaris, which has no relation, but said to be very effective for diarrhea and dysentery. Now, I get a doubt now. I really get a doubt whether they are really very effective. But ethnobotanical data, as I said, has percolated over centuries. That information has percolated over a period of several centuries. As I said, from oral folklore only, it has come. So everything we should take it for granted. Yes, it must be very effective. But here is a problem for me that selecting which is the best species, we do not know. Right? Now, you take, for example, the ethnobotanical usage of Kegel marmelas among different ethnic tribes for diarrhea and dysentery. Now, what does it mean? This is completely the opposite. For the same plant, same disease, diarrhea and dysentery in the previous slide, understand this. For diarrhea and dysentery, numerable plant species are attributed, right? Here, for same diarrhea and dysentery, this plant is used by many tribes. Same plant is used by many tribes. If you analyze this, Rajasthan tribes also use, the Prakasham also in Andhra Pradesh they use, in Rajasthan, in Bombay, in Mizoram, you see in the northeast region, in Mizoram, in Uttar Pradesh, all unrelated tribes are using the same plant for the same ailment. What does this give to you? It is opposite of the first one. First one, for same disease, numerous plants are applied. Here, same plant is used by different tribes in the country. So this gives me one conclusion. What is that? He uses, she uses, this fellow uses, that fellow uses, everybody uses, must be effective. Without even scientific evaluation, I can come to this conclusion saying that if everybody is using these unrelated tribes, they are not related to each other. Unrelated tribes are all using the same plant. It must be very, very effective. So therefore, I take it. It must be a very effective plant. I have not scientifically evaluated, just based on ethnobotanical data. That's why role of ethnobotany is very important. I'm telling, ethnobotany plays a major role in shortlisting or prioritization of species for bioprospection. Now, this kind of study, what we call comparative ethnobotanical data, is very important. I can say this is cross-cultural ethnobotanical studies. What does cross-cultural ethnobotanical study means? Once you list an ethnic lead from any tribe, you must compare the data with all other 500 tribes that we have in our country, and the same plant is being used by unrelated, some 20, 100 tribes are using, yes, must be very effective. 200 tribes are using the same plant, much more effective. 500 tribes are using, much more effective. That is prioritizing based on how many different unrelated tribes use this. So for that, what we want, see, that is, you read this, use of a particular species for the same ailment by different unrelated ethnic groups indicates the efficacy and potential of these drugs for drug development. I think that's very clear. Unrelated tribes using the same plant for this, right? Now, how do we prioritize? It is by the entire ethnobotanical data. And if I have to say, suppose I have collected a plant which is, say, in Mysore, I have collected a plant and the plant in local people use it for, say, jaundice or maybe cancer, whatever plant I say. Now, I must compare this with all other tribes in the country and see how many of them. What do I need? I should need, or I must get the entire data of all 500, ethnic data of 500 tribes. Unfortunately, in our country, there is no tribe-wise ethnobotanical database. I hope you understand. There is no tribe-wise ethnobotanical database is not there. So therefore, I am not able to compare. I am not able to say how many people, how many tribes are using. So based on the ethnic literature that is available, I compare. So 5 tribes are using, 6 tribes are using. I go for prioritization or shortlisting of those species, which may not be really very effective. So what I want today is cross-cultural ethnobotanical studies involving the 500 ethnic tribes should be there. Then we can always say that this is very important. In spite of the fact 5,000 years the medicinal plants are there in our country, even today we have not been able to prioritize species, shortlist species for bioprospection work is because of this problem. We don't have the prioritization of the species and there is no ethnobotanical literature. There are also other constraints now. Bioprospection, if you want to do, cooperation is not there, I told, and required number of good taxonomists and field botanists are also not there. Today, there are not many people to identify the plant, and the botanists are also there, right? Vast array of flora with enormous intraspecific variation. This is another thing which is much more difficult now. Suppose I say the a plant in Mysore is very good for anti-diabetic work. Yes, that's a very important. Okay, but that plant occurs throughout the country. How do I know whether it is the Mysore plant is very important, Rajasthan plant is very important, or Telangana plant is important? Because there is no chemical analysis. We have not done that kind of infra-specific studies within any particular species. This is another drawback. This is a big constraint for us. On one side, yes, since we have not done that, what we do is immediately, yes, Mysore plant we will take and do the rest of the work. That may be very effective for a person. It may not be very effective because of the quality and quantity of the chemical that is available in this plant may not be satisfactory. So this point you should always keep in our mind. So if we want to, today I want to take up any plant for bioprospection, since we belong to Telangana University or belong to Rajasthan University, in your campus, whatever the plant is there, you take and do. That kind of work should not be done. That kind of work has no meaning because you are not sure which is the best plant available to you. So therefore, in future, what we need is we need to go for focused research. In fact, focused research means first do this prioritization studies. Prioritize, say I want diabetes, 5 best plants in the country. Jaundice, 5 plants, which are the best plants. All that based on cross-cultural ethnobotanical studies, all that you can do. Then go for chemical screening. So these are the 5 plants we should do. Once you identify those 5 plants, you cannot immediately go for bioprospection. Again, you have to go these 5 plants, which is the best population available, whether Rajasthan population, Telangana population. See, that chemical analysis we have to do. Then when you are sure that, yes, this plant is, this species is okay, not from Mysore, but this species collected from Rajasthan is much better, then you identify, you should go for work on that particular population. So that is what is called focus. We should try to focus this. Then comes the scientists, all the scientists were all working. So it should be a projected research, it should be. So now what is happening? There must be at least 20 people working on anti-diabetic plants. One in Mysore, one in Kashmir, one in Rajasthan, one in Hyderabad, somewhere, everywhere people are working. Everybody is working on their own plant. That is not a focused one. Everybody is working. On the other hand, once you prioritize and identify the best population, all the 20 people working in the country should be projected towards you work only on this plant. Any amount of money you take from this, take 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, work on this plant. The whole group should work and ultimately should bring out. That is what is called the focused research that has to be done. I think we don't have that focused research in our country. That should be done. Now, I also said it is a priority agenda now. I told about this. See, what I talked about medicinal and aromatic plants is holds good for even, I told, say, hydrocarbon plants, metal tolerant plants, or even wood gas, which is the fast growing woods. Everything bioprospection has to be done. And then only shortlist the species. Now, even when you do this, the problem is, yes, the technology. Sometimes you may have the technology with you, you may not have the technology. In many cases, what is happening is, yes, particularly the tropical countries, the developing countries are poor in technology, but rich in biodiversity. That is also a problem with us. We are poor in technology, but rich in biodiversity. So many of the countries, what they do, they collaborate with the technology-rich nations, which are all developed nations, technology-rich nations they do. So therefore, often a question is also raised, is bioprospection a biopiracy? That is also, is bioprospection a biopiracy? In the name of sophisticated terminology, bioprospection, is it not biopiracy is not going? So that is also a question raised often by some people, and it is true to some extent. It is true to some extent, because that's why I said we should be extremely careful. Proper memorandum of understanding should be there when you go for, and then what should be in return, what I should get, all that should be very clearly mentioned. Then only bioprospection can progress. Then comes the, I said about priority agenda. Why priority agenda? Because today, many of our plants, there is a, this photograph itself shows the threats to diversity and conservation. See, the rich forested areas are all become accessible now today. Anywhere you want to travel, you can travel in the Himalayas. There is no problem now, because all these areas have been made into accessible sites. Now, at one time, it was an inaccessible zone. Now it has become accessible. So man can go anywhere, collect plants, destroy anything he wants. So there is a severe threat to our biodiversity. Now let me look into what are those threats. Number one is, yes, population. Huge population, it is diagrammatic representation of the picture. In 1980, this is the vegetation. Vegetation versus population. You look at the ratio in 1980. In 2020, now vegetation is this and population has grown to this extent. Now this is the state today. After 30 years, what happens? After another 50 years, what happens? You can imagine. Huge population rise, the vegetation, the increased population, everything has, the vegetation has to suffer, because for all its requirements, it is the vegetation only. Food demands, for dwelling also vegetation is cut. For agriculture purpose, the vegetation is cut. So the vegetation is suffering because of the human population. Now you can imagine, this is in Sikkim. The township extension, huge township has come up here, expansion at the cost of dense flora. Now that is one thing. And in some places, in many places, shifting agriculture. For example, in the northeastern region, shifting agriculture is going on. What is shifting agriculture? It is, the local people select a piece of forested land. They cut off the entire flora and fauna. They are cut off there. And then before the onset of monsoon, the entire agriculture, the biomass is burnt and cleared all this junk. And they grow the land for 2, 3, 4 years till the yield starts reducing. When the yield starts reducing, they abandon this area and go to some other forested area and repeat the process. And that's why it is called shifting agriculture. Shifting agriculture in the northeast region is a very important part. And because of this, or even settled agriculture like terrace agriculture in the Himalayan zone, or particularly in Gadwal, this is from the Gadwal region. In the Gadwal region, have vast amount of vegetation it has cleared. I think that's become a major threat. In Meghalayan region, the forested lands have been cleared for growing pineapple. So all that is going on at the cost. These are all human-made or man-made threats that is going on in the country. In addition to that, the invasive alien species. Invasive alien species means alien species, for example, all those species that have come from some other country. So this is, for example, Mycania. This is Senedrella vialis. This is Mimosa. This is again Hyptis. Hyptis is very abundant in Telangana region, also very abundant in, see, all the South American weeds. All these weeds have come. And also in the next slide, now you can see this. This is Artemisia, and this is Cassia alata. This is not alata, uniflora, Cassia uniflora. This is Erigeron. This is Mucuna species. All these species have come and occupied to such an extent that the entire area is covered. Completely they cover off the entire area and remove the local vegetation. Now my question is that these have come, say for example, the previous slide, this one, vialis, Senedrella vialis, for example. It has come some 15, 20 years ago in our country. Some 15, 20 years ago it has come. Today, If you see in Bangalore, any of these places in Karnataka, all the undergrowth is completely covered by this. Completely it is covered by this. And 15 years, 20 years ago, before coming this weed, what plants were growing there? What plants were growing? It was not a barren land. They were also some our own local plants were growing. Now they have been replaced. What are those species that have been replaced? Any idea? We don't have any idea. What species have gone? We do not know. How many populations have disappeared? We do not know. All this we do not know. But the point is, yes, these have occupied whole areas today. Mycania, all these plants are such robust weeds that they occupy the whole area in almost pure population. Almost pure population they occupy and kill all the native vegetation. This is a major threat to our flora now. Now, in the case of medicinal plants, selective removal of plants. For example, this is Brahma Kamal. Brahma Kamal is a wonderful medicinal plant, very highly fragrant, and it is the state flower of Uttar Pradesh. And this is not a flower actually, this is an inflorescence. Actually, the whole inflorescence is hidden by the bracts, covered by bracts. And these flowers are offered to the shrines of Badrinath and Kedarnath. That's one thing. It is offered to the shrines of Badrinath as well as Kedarnath. So therefore, the pilgrims who pass through Joshimat and all that, they try to buy this and offer it. The local people collect this plant in bulk and sell it to the pilgrims for 2 rupees, 3 rupees, whatever it is, they kill it. Now, with the result, what has happened? This entire flora, this particular Brahma Kamal flora, has become very critically endangered. Today, it is now banned from collection. Uttar Pradesh government has banned collection of Brahma Kamals, and that is how we are trying to protect this. That is number one. Now, these are some of the actions for priority actions, I will say again, for conservation of biodiversity. Number one is assessment of threatened species and threatened habitats. We do not know. If you want to talk of which are those, I told about large number of plants have become hotspot. Many of them, 4 hotspots are already there. So all this is okay. Now, but now my point is how to assess the threatened species and threatened habits and also critically endangered threatened species. Now that is another thing. So what we have to do now, assess the important threatened habitats, like say sacred groves. I told sacred groves, swamp forest, the Myristica swamps is a good example. Myristica swamps, some of these we have to identify and also identify the most critically threatened species. How do we do that critically threatened species? Now, suppose you are in your own region, so you want to assess the threatened species. If you are asked to go, you tell us the 5 or 10 threatened species. How do we do? There are 2 or 3 ways. Number one, yes, going to the field and qualitative assessment you can do. If you want to do the quantitative assessment through the quadrant method, you select depending upon how big your area, you select the size of the quadrant and throw the quadrant randomly and go for phytosociological studies and say that out of 100 quadrants, only in 1 quadrant, 1 plant has come. So therefore, this must be extremely a rare plant. That is one way that you can do. Also, you can go to a well-established herbarium and try to list those plants. Well-established herbarium. Say, for example, Central National Herbarium at Calcutta, you go. Now, I want to know critically endangered euphorbiaceae plants in Mysore. I'm just giving an example. Anything is possible. Critically endangered euphorbiaceae plants in Mysore. What I do, I go to the euphorbiaceae bundle in Central National Herbarium and see from Mysore how many people have collected the plants. Say maybe 100 people have botanized the Mysore area. 100 people have collected plants. Make a list of all those plants. Now, when you do that, there may be one species collected by only one botanist and all the 99 people have not collected this. All others have gone to the same area, but all the 99 people have not listed this plant except only one plant. So there is only one collection, meager representation of an herbarium specimen in a herbarium. That is an indicative of the threat status. So immediately you can come to the conclusion, 100 people have gone, they have not been able, only one fellow has collected. It must be extremely a rare plant. It is not possible. People might have missed this extremely rare plant. Or it could be such a minute plant which the others have not been able to see. So it gives a fair the idea of these are, we make a list of those plants, then go to the field and see whether it is really very rare. And if you are not able to see that plant anywhere, yes, it is a very rare plant. That is, by the making use of the herbarium, you can also make a list of critically endangered species. That's what. Now, international cooperation is needed in controlling and checking the spread of invasive alien species. Now, alien species are not ours. Most of the species have come from America. Most of the species have come from tropical America, particularly Mexico and tropical America. In our country, large number of species have come. Now, take for example, Parthenium. Parthenium was reported first time from Mysore, from myself only. That was in 1970. 71 or 70. I just reported this as a new record for the South Karnataka. Now, at that time, when I collected this plant, there were only just two plants, two individuals near Srirangpatna railway station. I collected this. The two, after I have submitted my thesis to PhD. I have submitted my PhD. After submitting, I suddenly came to these two plants I saw, and I was surprised. 3 years intensive survey I have done. I did not find this plant. Suddenly these two plants have come. Again, I collected, made a big exercise of identifying this, and I took almost 3 months, 4 months. I do not know how much time I must have spent in identifying that plant, because there was nobody to tell what is this plant. Today, everybody knows. At that time, no literature, because it was not reported. No flora, nothing, nobody was there. So I did the exercise of so many long time. Then I could identify, yes, this is Parthenium. Now you can imagine, today only two plants were there, but today you can imagine all the southern states are fully loaded with Parthenium, killing all our native species. Now, when I go to the, say for example, the South America, when I go to South America, I I did not see any Parthenium anywhere there. That was the interesting thing for me. I did not see any of the Parthenium plant, although it is so much, it is native to America, but in our country it has come and spreading like anything, and I did not see. I asked some of the local fellows in Mexico, I asked some of the local fellows, I want to see this Parthenium plant. It was a big problem for them. This man wants to see Parthenium. They discussed among themselves in their own language, because the Spanish are lacking something they speak. So in their own language, they discussed, and it was a big problem to somebody ultimately came up and said, sir, I will show you. Yes, I will show you Parthenium. Yes, I will show you. And he took me so many kilometers. We walked, and ultimately he showed me a plant which was a sickly Parthenium. It was almost a dying stage Parthenium. That is the position of the Parthenium in their native country. Whereas when it has spread to our country, it has become, therefore the alien breeds, when once they go to an alien land, when they go to alien land, for them, there are no enemies, those spread like anything, like wildfire, and spread everywhere. So therefore, there is a need that if we have to control, we need to go for international cooperation for controlling and checking the spread of invasive alien species. Now, also I will tell you why, because you may do everything controlling and all that. If the adjacent country, say for example, China, this plant is much spread. And if they do not take any control and only you take control measures in India, no, I want to control this. And even if you control, tomorrow again it will spread from China. So therefore, it is a cooperation is required from the surrounding countries also in controlling this. So that's one important thing I just want to tell you in controlling the spread of invasive alien species. And assessment of threatened habits, I told. And also assessment of major threats to species is another one. Assessment of major threats to species and explore the possibility of their in situ protection. Now, this is another thing. Major threats means, is it now, so you want to declare a particular area. Now, you suppose I want to declare a particular area as protected. Any form of protected area. It may be a wildlife sanctuary, biosphere reserve, or whatever it is. Now, once you do this assessmenting, the habit is assessment of habitats, I'm telling you, suppose you say this is a plant and I want to declare this as a protected area. Suppose you protect this. Say there are already large number of protected habitats in our country, like Bandipur Sanctuary, for example. The Bandipur Sanctuary is there. Namdapha Biosphere Reserve is there. Any biosphere reserve, okay, it is protected now. Now, you see, as a botanist, I cannot go and collect any plant. What I do, I go and bring an herbarium specimen of 9-inch twig and I will cut the plant. So I am not allowed. Now, without permission, now it's a very big problem. I cannot go and study this because they think that we will destroy the plant. Now, but one thing is not very clear to anybody, any of these forest managers. No one is very clear about this thing. What is that is, now, for example, spread of invasive weed. One seed of Parthenium enters. One seed of Parthenium enters to the protected area. Within 3-4 years, whole undergrowth is covered only by Parthenium, killing all the native flora. So as a botanist, I will not be allowed to go for 2-3 to collect some 9-inch twigs of some plants. But when these uninvited guests, when they enter without the knowledge, and whole undergrowth is destroyed. That is what has happened in the Bandipur Sanctuary today. That is what has happened. The both Parthenium as well as the Lantana, these two invasives have spread and completely killed. So therefore, there is a need that now we should try to not only just monitor the flora, protected area. There is a protected area manager, for example. Protected area manager is there. His job is to see this. Yes, I have put an iron fence. So I am taking care of, the key is with me. Whoever comes, I will open the gate and allow. So therefore, I am managing. No, it is not possible. Even one seed comes, entire area is destroyed. So therefore, we have to study, we have to take care of this also. Explore in such cases, what we do, possibility of their in situ protection. If not possible, in situ protection for any endangered species is not possible, you should try to shift that particular species to some other area. There are a large number of examples. Janaki Aryal Patra is one example, and Catamyxis beccariidis in the Meghalayan region is another example, highly important medicinal plant. Now the areas are in danger now. So in such cases, we cannot protect there, and you should shift this plant to some protected where there is some, say, botanical garden or man-made, or where we can take care of in such natural habitats. We can shift those things. So that is in situ, ex situ, it becomes ex situ protection. Either you go for in situ, provided it is this conservation is very strong there, or if it is not possible, shift that to an in situ, ex situ area where you can protect that. And conservation doesn't mean that only bringing some 3-4 plants. Oh, the plant is dying here, so I will take that plant and put it in the botanical garden. So that's what many of us are doing now today. Conservation means, yeah, this plant is very critically endangered. It is dying there. So I will collect it from the natural habitat and grow it in our botanical garden. So they say, and they make a photograph and send it to the funding agencies and saying that I have preserved this, I have conserved this particular species. Oh, it is highly protected. No. Conservation doesn't mean simply bringing some plants from the wild and grow it in the botanical garden. So what we need is, he has to multiply that species in the botanical garden. You should see, multiply that in the botanical garden, making use of the modern technology, maybe tissue culture or seed bank, whatever it is you want to do that, you multiply it and then take it in place of with the original habitat. 500 plants, 600 plants, or whatever it is, you can just take it and rehabilitate in natural habitat or near natural habitat. And after you do this, you have to monitor it over a period of time. Now, many cases, it so happens I have transferred 500 plants in the tribe locality. In the original habitat, I have 500. And after 5 years, if you go, there is not a single plant. So therefore, we have to monitor that population. Now, how do we monitor that population? Every year we have to do this. Every year, whether, and you see 500 plants you have put today, and next year when you go, if the population is only 400, that means the population is declining. That means the plant is going to be critically endangered. After 3rd year, 4th year, 5th year, again the population comes down. So that is how we have to monitor that. Then you have to look for something else. What is that? Why this species is not multiplying? The next question comes, why this species is not multiplying? Is there any bottleneck? in the reproductive biology of that species. So the reproductive biological studies have to be done. So if there is either say seed dispersal, there is a problem, or in the pollination, insects are not there, or even if it pollinates, there is also compatibility may not be there. All these things have to be studied in the pollination biology of that species. And if there is a bottleneck in that, we have to overcome that bottleneck and see that the species freely multiplies. What is a successful species? A successful species is one species which can live very happily and see its offsprings are also sent to far off places and for survival. They also survive, establish new population. Every species does this. Every species wants to extend their domain. I think that is inbuilt. And if the species is not able to do that, every year the population number declines, then the species is considered to be rare or critically endangered. And then we have to go for reproductive biology to overcome and multiply that. And cultivation of threatened medicinal plants. Now, when you talk of selective removal of medicinal plants, why don't you cultivate this? Cultivate that particular medicinal plant. I think that's another thing. Now, cultivating medicinal plant many times has no best advantage. In fact, sometimes people say in natural condition, the alkaloid content is very good. All that they say. But the point is, we have no option. At least we should try to cultivate almost in the near natural areas, in the same areas, adjacent areas. We should try to cultivate. By cultivating this, 2 or 3 things is possible. One is conserving in natural habitat. It will not be destroyed in the conservation, in the natural habitat. And the other thing is that assured or constant supply of the raw material is assured. That is the one. If you cultivate a medicinal plant, raw material is assured. And the third one is you are sure of what plant you are cultivating. What plant, again, I will say, whether it is a Rajasthan population, whether it is a Mysore, you are sure of that. In the absence of this, if you just go to a farmer and buy this, we are not sure from where this plant has come. Whether it is Rajasthan population or Mizoram population, we do not know. Now, highest alkaloid content, if you want that first elite, you have to identify the elite population and cultivate that. So that cultivation, when you do that, we are sure that you will be able to know which population it is. And then, as I said, agrotechnology is a must. Without agrotechnology, it's not possible for these things. And tribal wisdom helps in conservation. This is also, again, another very important. What is the tribal wisdom? Tribals have their own ways of preserving the flora and fauna. They have their own. Every tribe has their own. Say, for example, I told about the sacred grove. Sacred grove is one which is attached to some belief. Oh, a tiger will come and kill you, or a devil will come and kill you. These are all beliefs. But that is the tribal wisdom. And whether you like it or not, we should try to strengthen that belief so that we can conserve. The tribal wisdom helps in conservation. Sometimes they say, no, these trees, say bilwa, eagle marmelas, or ficus religiosa, you should not cut this because Lord Krishna is sitting on the leaves of, say, ficus religiosa. Some attachments are made. Like this, almost all the tribes have their own set of trees and species which are banned from destruction. So that is one way. Then also there is what is called the equating a particular plant species to one nakshatra. There are 27 nakshatras. Each nakshatra is equated with one particular species. Punarvasu nakshatra is Bambusa bambusaidis. So what does it mean is, at least those, say, for example, Punarvasu nakshatra people will definitely not go and cut bambusa. That is the one. They will not go and cut this because, oh, that is my nakshatra tree, so I will not. I will protect. This is again a belief, and based on this belief, some of these plants are being protected, right? I think that is the one. So now my concluding, what I say is, Indian biodiversity is very rich. Converting the biological wealth into monetary wealth by way of product development is the need of the day, a major challenge, right? Bioprospecting of the biological resources is the only way for proper utilization and product. See, without bioprospecting, we cannot go for product development. That is the only way. Identifying the right bioresource for bioprospecting is crucial. This is very important. Now, anything that is available, you take and work for a diabetes. No, please don't do this. try to identify the right bioresource, then only you will be able to. And focused research, I told, this requires cooperative investigations from a wide variety of scientists like taxonomists, ethnobotanists, pharmacologists, biotechnologists, phytochemists, molecular biologists, and many more. All these people should join together, go for product development. Interdisciplinary studies, at least in India, have not proved satisfactory. This is a big problem in our country because two rooms, two laboratories, people cannot see each other. That is a problem. So ever since from the beginning, even my days also, and now it is also continuing the same thing, that adjacent one lab, so the other lab, what is happening, they do not know because they close the door. Nobody should know what we are doing. So this is the kind of thing now. Interdisciplinary studies, you forget it. But if you interested, if you are able to do this, the younger generation perhaps should overcome all this, and the interdisciplinary study should be undertaken, and then only we will be successful in um, bioprospection. Funding agencies in future must sanction projects dealing with bioprospecting with only interdisciplinary studies. This is my plea to the funding agencies, that they should not sanction funds at all now. If it is an individual project, it should be purely interdisciplinary. If I am doing bioprospecting, I should have a biotechnology, I should have a taxonomy, I should have an ethnobotanist, I should have an ecologist, and also pharmacologist. All these fellows should join together, then go for bioprospecting. So only for such project, the funding agency should try to give funds. Otherwise, our bioprospection will not be successful in our country. So in conclusion, what I would say is, yes, biodiversity is very rich, and it is a priority agenda, because I said that there is no option now. Adjacent, we have China with us. China is also a rich biodiversity country, adjacent to us only, and they are fast running, whereas we are sleeping. They are fast running, we are still sleeping. So therefore, there is no time now. If India has to become globally number one, the most powerful country in the world because of rich biodiversity, we should immediately get up and scan the entire biodiversity, identify species, prioritize species, go for bioprospection, so that we should be able to put large number of international market products. It should go, so that India will become rich. I think I will stop at this, and then if there are questions, you can ask me. Then I will uh, 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 highlight some of those things later on. Yes. Any questions?
Sir, about that plant which is used as a sweetener, family, and about its what means which climatic conditions it will grow. Is it
It
a
is in the,
herb, shrub, or what?
no, 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 it grows even in your region also, even CMAP also. It is, if it is stevia, what you are talking of American plant, Americans come and took, that is the one.
African, that West African plant which is
Oh, that is Gabon region. Yes, that is a dry area. Most of the dry area plants, I think in Telangana region, it should come. But how do you get that plant? Now you cannot bring that plant. That is Pentadiplandra brasiliana. It is a biosweetener, and traditionally, now we are not supposed to go and bring any plant, any genetic material from any other country. India is a member of Rio Convention. You cannot go and bring. Suppose you want to bring, you should develop a joint research program between the Gabon scientists there, the North American scientists, West African scientists, and between India, and develop a memorandum of understanding, and definitely should be able to undertake an important bioprospection program. Yes, that is good, but it requires a lot of hurdles. Yes,
is
that
it
is.
restricted to is it restricted to that particular location only? Is it endemic?
It is Pentadiplandra is, yes, endemic. Pentadiplandra brasiliana, Pentadiplandra raceyi. We don't have that in our country. It is only African. Yeah.
So is it a, I mean, it's a tree or shrub or a
It is a
herb?
shrub.
What?
It is a shrub. It is a shrub. It is a shrub, and the berries. In fact, that the epidermis in that level, very sweet proteins are there. In fact, that sweet protein is almost 2,000 times sweeter than sugar. That is the one. It is just like our zizyphus berry, that type of skin. It is, that is the one. Pentadiplandra brasiliana, you can note down that. And if you want to work something on that, yes, you should be in touch with the scientists at Gabon and take up this work. Yes. Yes, any other questions?
So about that Valley of Flowers, what is the exact location of that Valley of Flowers?
That is, if you want to go to Valley of Flower, yes, I will tell you. from Rishikesh to Badrinath on the way. We should go to near Joshimat, one place called Joshimat. Recently, of course, that avalanches took place. I think TV made came, so many people died. It is exactly that region. Now, there is a place called Joshimat in before 30 kilometers before reaching Badrinath. I don't know whether I have the map of that. I think if there is a map, I can show that. That's in a different slide, actually. When I talk of Valley of Flowers, all these slides will come. So there is a place called Joshimat. From Joshimat, you have to climb towards north. And you climb up 14 kilometers, you have to climb the Himalayan mountains. 14 kilometers, we have to trek. There is no bus route or cycle route or anything. You have to walk 14 kilometers. When you reach, we will reach a place called Gangeria. That Gangeria comes, and from Gangeria is the last place where human habitation is there. There you can halt there for night, and next day morning, another 3 kilometers. When you go towards left, you will go to Valley of Flowers, and further north when you go to Hemkund. So these two are the places where enormous amount of diversity. Hemkund is a place very religiously very important for Sikhs, and this Valley of Flowers is a paradise for botanists because enormous amount of flowering will be there. But anytime you go, you don't see. Only in the first week of August or maybe up to 10th, you can see the flowers. After that, it will be completely snow covered. So that's why it is a paradise. In fact, it was a accidental discovery. Valley of Flowers was an accidental discovery. The two mountain explorers, in fact, were returning after climbing the Nanda Devi peak, and they lost the way. While coming, they lost the way, and they were searching the way, and somewhere they stumbled upon a valley called, and they named it, they shouted Valley of Flowers. They saw so many flowers, they immediately shouted Valley of Flowers, and that became the Valley of Flowers. The name also is given like that, Valley of Flowers. Very beautiful one. Yes, anything. It is.
It,
Uh, hmm.
what is there in Western Ghats, Satara, you told?
Satara is Khas Plateau. That is on the hilltop. See, the South Indian mountains are not like this, the sharp pointed. They are all flat topped, very flat topped, particularly in the Maharashtra region. All the mountains are completely flat topped. And on that, during the month of September, huge amount of flowers come up. And that's why it is a lateritic soil. A unique flora comes only during September. Again, I will tell you, thousands of visitors go there on a Saturday and Sunday. If you go, you should see all that and enjoy. Thousands of people from nearby places, they come and they have their food, everything, enjoy. Beautiful flowers will be there all around. And I do not know among the teachers anybody is from Maharashtra. If there are anybody, they must have seen this. Yes, it's a
They are
uh,
from Maharashtra, but not from that region, actually.
yeah. Maharashtra
They are
people
from
should
Nagpur
visit
region.
this. Yes, if they are from Maharashtra and if they have not visited, I say they have definitely missed something. I
No,
think we
they
should
are
all
from
visit.
Nagpur region. The teachers attending here are now in.
Nagpur, okay, you should go to Satara. Just
Yeah.
Satara on the tabletop on the top, you will find beautiful. Thousands of people come and visit, not botanists. At least if you are a botanist, you should definitely visit this area.
So,
Enjoy.
what are the characteristic flora of that region where you see such flowers?
What is the characteristic?
I mean, to say they are what they are. They are herbs, shrubs, or
All are shrubs, no trees, no trees. All are herbs. Beautiful herbs only because they are all lateritic soil. There is no deep soil there. There is no 5 feet, 10 feet soil is not there. All are, laterite rocks are there. On that, some amount of soil is there, very thin, marginally. So therefore, only the herbaceous flora grow. And in fact, there is a big list of plants also we have listed on 150 important plant species we have listed, very beautiful ones, all of them, and they are all adapted to that particular region only, and flower only ephemeral, maybe 15 days maximum they will all die off.
Achha.
And when it dies off, say when you go in say month of October, the whole area looks barren, completely dried up, barren. Nothing is there. Nobody will say that this is a beautiful place where it was flowering. No, nobody can say. So it looks like that. But only September you should go. You before going, please check the details. 9th, 10th, 11th are the nice days, but it depends on the climate of that particular year. So that is the one you should try to see and then go. I think botanical trip, we should all go. It's a beautiful one. You should visit. And there are many of these plants are, I have only showed 3-4 slides. There are 150 species. All of them are very beautiful plants. Nice ones. Yes. Then next.
They are beautiful flowers. It is the usually we heard from Shivanna sir and also from other people also that these flowers are actually colorful just because for the pollination by insects also it is. So
Agreed. Yes.
whether these plants will be giving the
Yeah.
fertile seeds or whether they will
See,
be, I mean, say,
in general, all the plants, anywhere, not all adapted. See, every part of the flower is particularly meant for some adaptive significance. They have all adaptive significance. Corolla is there, some function. Calyx is there, some function. Right? Your ovary is there, stamen is there, some function. Every part of the plant has an adaptive value, adaptive significance is there. So color, when you talk of flowers, particularly the petals are variously colored. One of the function of the petals is to attract insects only. There is no other, only to attract the insects, and that is why if it is a white flower, many of them are white flower, they invite moths, and they are all nocturnal in nature. They are blooming in the night, so they invite one set of flowers. And also, please understand, all these flowers will not flower in one go. So there will be some yellow flower, then pink flower, then white flower, like that. So the insects also are different types of insects come. The function primarily of corolla, the attractive color, is only to attract insects. Only to attract insects, nothing else.
but my question, a continuation of the question is whether seeds will be fertile seeds born in the plants or the seeds may not, because most of the flowering plants, when they have beautiful flower, like rose or some like flowers, their seeds are not at all fertile. They never germinate from the, I'm going to say, seeds.
No,
What
no.
about
You
these
see,
plants?
all these flowers are fertile. They will all definitely, seeds are fertile, provided you grow them in that region. Suppose you bring that and then take it to a tropical place or some other temperate region, they may plant, they may produce a flower, but seed may not come out. So that is, they say, you talked about rose. Rose will not set fruits. Rose is a temperate plant, and you bring the temperate plant and then grow it in your garden, beautiful flowers will come, fruit will not come. But you go to the temperate country, all these roses are flowering, the seeds produces fruits and seeds. They are all fertile. That is in the temperate regions. So that when you change the area, many of them may not. And then added to that, all the flowers are not sexually multiplying. So there are some of them apomictic ones. Some of them are vegetative reproduction are there. So it depends on the plant how it is adapted. If it is a vegetative
So,
reproduction, you cannot
so
expect that.
the answer is the plants whose, I mean, the plant seeds which are not germinating in our area means they
Hmm.
don't belong to our place. They will be belonging from some other climate,
Yes,
and
yes,
they are brought here and we are
yes.
forcefully them to
See, some
germinate.
species, say for some species are having wide ecological amplitude. Some say it can germinate here also, it can germinate here also, it can germinate here. Such wide amplitude, species with wider amplitude, they may flower and fruit here. Otherwise, if they are all narrow ecological amplitude, you cannot expect them to flower in different places. So it will not flower. There are many such cases. For example, many of the European species we have introduced, say for a Delonix, Telonix is one which you have introduced. It produces enormous amount of fruits and flowers also. So that possible, because these are the ones which are highly ecologically amplitude. It is developed, and also many of them are cultivated. Cultivated plants are all, modified and introduced by human beings. I think that they have adapted to this system only.
Last one question. What
Please.
about this sugarcane and turmeric and like that plants?
Hmm.
Turmeric also mostly, and sugarcane, banana. Most
Uh,
of the times, people will not use seeds. Instead of seeds, they'll use different material for their crop plantation. Shivanda sir, if you can answer, you can also answer.
No. What your question was? Professor Shivana has come now. Yes.
Turmeric,
Yeah.
turmeric is there, sugarcane is there, or some like this
See,
plantation.
these are all vegetatively propagated. These are all
Yes.
vegetative.
Those seeds are made, but their seeds are not used. Why this practice is going on?
No, because that is much more easier for us. Seeds say it may take more time, but vegetative cutting is much faster for us.
One thing,
Convenience, our convenience.
the cultivated plant, there have been a lot of changes during the course of
Yes.
cultivation, thousands of years. In fact, as far as sugarcane is concerned, it is not even allowed to flower. They will harvest the sugarcane even before it flowers, because that is for its economic use they cultivate. So you can't generalize in the sense cultivated species. Man uses these cultivated species the way he wants to use them.
That's based on economical importance. We don't allow the
As far as
plant to
cultivated
mature.
species are concerned, propagation is no problem because man takes care of their propagation.
Yes.
If they are wild species, they have to propagate on their own. All these things will come into act, whether it is pollination.
One last question. Why it
whatever the
happens
case.
that though the seeds are falling down, under the shade of the same plant, but they don't allow the germination of those plants. Mostly,
Yes.
some plants may allow, some plants will not allow. Why it happens? Is it allochemistry or allelochemicals? That same concept again.
No,
No, I
see,
don't.
first of all, the shade, that is, if it falls below the mother tree, see, they require some amount of shade, sorry, sunlight. Sunlight is not there, they may not germinate.
No,
And alilo, you said, it is among different species.
the thing is, below the parent species, many of the wild plant species, they do germinate. Hundreds of seedlings will come up below the canopy of the tree or plant. But some of the cultivated species, they may not germinate immediately because they may have viability. Sorry, they may have dormancy. So the dormancy depends whether sometimes it's an adaptive feature because they want to germinate only when the next season, when the rain starts coming in the monsoon climate particularly. So if they germinate immediately, when they're falling down, if the soil is wet, if they germinate, then the dry season will begin. They can't survive. So they have to wait. They have to wait until the next monsoon so that the seedlings can establish, so that there will be a couple of months of monsoon. So there are lots of adaptation. Sometimes these adaptations are in response to the environmental changes. For example, many of the flowering plants, which are highly specialized, they attract only one type of insect. By chance, if the pollinator is absent, they evolve some other mechanism. Some other mechanism means that they evolve self-pollination. There are many examples in which the self-pollination has been evolved. If you compare a species where the pollinator is there, there is regular pollination. Whereas in some other area where pollination is not there, then they have become auto-pollinated, autogamous pollination. So they are very dynamic. They are not just static.
Participants,
you
please,
see, in sometimes,
if you can interact in the similar way how we are interacting each other,
yes,
please, you can also
participants,
unmute yourself and you can have the discussion, because this is the intention of our course. Please, you can unmute yourself, because it's a rare opportunity where we can ask questions and get answers that too positive way. These are the stalwarts of our plant sciences, so they can be, no other can be the correct person to ask the questions. Please, if you can ask quickly or chat, at least in chat box, if you drop the questions, it will be very happy moment for us, because our course is coming to an end tomorrow, and we will not have the opportunity again back. So though we are going to have some offline programs also coming days, but we don't know how the uh, pandemic situation, because as again the institutions are closed down from
yes,
last 4 or 5 days, again the educational institutions were closed down, and examinations are also postponed, and unless until further order comes, we have to again depend on the online version only. So please, participants, if you can quickly ask some question, it will be good. Anyhow, sir will be again back tomorrow. So we are having Sir's talk on conservation. We'll begin enjoying conservation tomorrow.
Thank you so tomorrow, much. What lectures you want, Dr. Ahmad Alim Khan? See, because I have listed plant nomenclature 1 for tomorrow. Okay. And another one is on plant taxonomy. These 2 I have listed. So do you want?
Conservation wala ho gaya.
So conservation, I have told some summary of this at the end, conservation. But if you want again tomorrow, I will repeat the same thing. But I feel one is, I do not know how many teachers are there. Taxonomy may be very important, number 1. And another one, plant nomenclature is very important for all of these people. So these 2 things I wanted to talk. If you want conservation, yes, I can talk on conservation also. So you decide and let me know, no problem for me.
टैक्सोनॉमी ले लीजिए, लेकिन पहले थोड़ा ऐसा लगता है कि ये कंजर्वेशन वगैरह अगर आप बात करेंगे तो इट विल बी ब्रॉड स्पेक्ट्रम कॉन्सेप्ट एंड थोड़ा ज्यादा मतलब लोगों को मतलब क्योंकि देखिए ट्रेडिशनल नॉलेज, इंडिजिनियस नॉलेज हमारा इतना ज्यादा है. We have so much in the indigenous knowledge, traditional knowledge, which we lack to know. Now current generation, for every solution they are using any syrup or any capsule or anything, but they are not using what we experienced when we were a child. So turmeric was used, tea powder was used, or
all these won't come under conservation. Conservation is something I talk about the IUCN categories and all that. That is a different thing. So yes, medicinal plants, all these things can come in medicinal plants. What you are talking, yes, medicinal plants.
So indigenous knowledge हमको ज़्यादा propagate करने के लिए, that was my intention. If not taxonomy and we heard taxonomy and nomenclature. Yes, you take a taxonomy and nomenclature, and one session you take on the medicinal plants and their current practices should be more now as Atmanirbhar Bharat we are now.
Okay, so tomorrow one talk will be on nomenclature, and another one I will talk on the medicinal plants. Fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a nice day, sir. You can start your sharing now.
Yes. Okay.
Now, shall I open my slides?
Yeah. You start sharing the screen, sir.
Okay, sorry, this is the last slide. Now I have to go back. What happened? Okay. Can all of you see the slide?
Yes.
Okay, then if everything is set, this will be my last and the 4th lecture. And I'm going to talk in this lecture about the 6th mass extinction crisis and its impact on biodiversity and human welfare. So this is another very important concern in the present day generation, and I am going to talk about that one. Now, in the last lecture, I have talked about one of the challenges, that is sustenance and improvement of crop productivity. Whereas in this lecture, I am going to talk on another challenge which humanity is facing today, and that is conservation of biodiversity. Now, why conservation of biodiversity has become important is because of the human-induced environmental changes, including climate change, has been the cause for extinction of a large number of species. And people believe that if the same trend continues, it may lead to sixth mass extinction, in which 2/3 of the species may become extinct. That's why conservation of biodiversity is one of the main challenges of the present generation. Now, biodiversity, I'm sure Dr. Rao would have elaborated a lot. Of course, broadly, biodiversity includes genetic variations found in all species present on this planet. And not only the species, but also their ecosystem interactions. So this includes plants, animals, microbes, and their interactions with biotic and abiotic components of the environment. Now, the best working estimate of the number of eukaryotic species present on the planet ranges from 8.7 million to 12 million species, of which only about 1.2 million species have so far been documented. So a lot more has to be done to document all the species that are present on Earth. So biodiversity and associated eco-services, whether it is pollination, whether it is seed dispersal, whether it is purification of air, and all those things, provide all our essential needs, whether it is air we breathe, whether it's food we eat, and many of our medicines, a major proportion of our building material, etc., they all come from biodiversity. That means other species living on this planet. So thus, human survival and welfare depend on biodiversity. Unless we sustain biodiversity, then human survival itself will be threatened. Now, as I told you, there are about 12 million species present on Earth, although the documentation has been confined to 1.2 million species. Now, this vast biodiversity present on this planet is the result of the evolutionary processes since the life originated about 4 billion years ago on Earth. So since the life originated, the number of species are increasing because of the evolutionary processes. So as the new species kept on evolving based on natural selection operating on heritable variations, a few species which turned out to be misfits in the new environment became extinct. So this is called background extinction. So the evolution of new species and extinction of a small proportion of existing species is a part of the evolutionary processes. But however, the number of species that became extinct, that is, as I told you, which is called background extinction, has been very, very small when compared to the new species that kept on evolving. That is how we have such a huge number of species present on this planet. So the rate of background variation or the background extinction varies amongst different groups of organisms, and it has been estimated based on fossil evidences and so on that one species extinction per million species per year is the rate of background extinction without the interference by human beings. Now, because of the rapid increase in the population, combined with human greed for luxurious living, these have put heavy burden on biodiversity and ecosystem services. So in the earlier lecture, I have already told you about the population of the whole world, what is expected by the end of the century, and also about the Indian population. So human-induced environmental changes in recent decades have resulted in the extinction of a larger number of species. In fact, much larger number of species when compared to the background extinctions. And apart from the large number of species that have become extinct, these human activities have also pushed a large number of species to the verge of extinction. Now, probably as you have come to know, many of the lectures may have been there on this one. International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, that is IUCN, has been evaluating a large number of species continuously for the last many years and categorizing them. It has its own criteria. I'm not going into the details of that criteria. And when once they evaluate a species, they classify them according to different groups. So one group is extinct and the other is extinct in the wild, critically endangered, endangered, vulnerable, near threatened, fast, least conserved, data deficient, because sometimes when they start analyzing species, there is not enough data. So they call it as, they put it under data deficient and not evaluated. Of course, the large number of species are yet to be evaluated. And every year they go on increasing the number of species of both plants and animals and microbes which have been evaluated. Now this graph shows the cumulative extinction as percentage of evaluated species of different groups of animals. This is largely animals only. Now this dotted line represents background extinction. If the human interference was not there, this would have been the background extinction. That is the percentage of extinctions of the evaluated species. But what is actually happening is, look at this. This is from 1500 to 2014, they have calculated. And they see right from 1500, some of these, like mammals and so on, they are already much higher extinction rate. But after Industrial Revolution, that is 1850 or so, all of them have become, they started becoming extinct and much higher rate when compared to the earlier. So all the time, they are significantly higher, either 500 times or even thousands of times higher when compared to the background extinction. So this is the mammals, birds, some of the vertebrates and other vertebrates and so on. So the rate of extinction after the human interference has become significantly more than the background extinction. Now, these are some of the very recently extinct species. I have just given only 2 examples. These are largely because of the overexploitation, poaching, and habitat degradation, and so on. One of them, this one, is the Lonesome George. This was the Galapagos Island. As you know, Galapagos Islands, the animals which are growing on these islands were the ones which gave very distinct clue to the Darwin to formulate his theory of evolution. So this, one of the giant tortoise species, that is one of the subspecies, this one, Chilonoidis nigra abingdonii. This became some years back, this is the last male tortoise that was found on these islands. Earlier, there were thousands and thousands of these tortoise. Now the whaling ships, every time they used to go to the Pacific for whaling, they used to collect hundreds of these and keep them in their ship as a food source. Because these tortoise, giant tortoise, can live without food or water for up to 1 year. So when once they take away these tortoise on their ship, they can serve as fresh food supply for up to 1 year. That's why every year they kept on collecting more and more these giant tortoise from Galapagos Islands, and the population got reduced. Eventually, this subspecies, only 1 male was left. Then it was brought to Darwin's Research Center, and they kept with this one 2 females from the closest relative, hoping that they may be able to recover some eggs and then progeny. Although it mated with those females and there were 30 eggs were laid by those females. None of them were viable. So eventually, this male, last male of this subspecies, became extinct in June 2012. Then, of course, it was so popular, they didn't throw this body. They sent it to New York to so that it can be recovered or restored by taxidermists. And now it has been kept in the Charles Darwin's museum, the body of this, the Lonesome George. Now, this is Sudan, the last male of northern white rhino. This died in 2018 in Kenya. Now, this again, they were the two small females were there of the species. They tried to mate it or by artificial mating and so on, but they did not conceive at all. So this generation is lost. Now, this is largely because of the poaching for these horns. So like that's one, there are hundreds of animals. Of course, animals have been thoroughly worked out. That's how we know. Whereas plants have not been worked out so thoroughly, it is very difficult for us to tell which of the plant has become extinct, when exactly it has become extinct, and so on. Now, earlier people thought that extinction rate of plants is much less when compared to animals. So they thought plants are more tolerant and they won't become extinct so easily as animals do. But one group of investigators from Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew, and University of Stockholm, they have been working thoroughly on the extinction of plant species since 1900. They have been working for the last many years, and recently they published the results in 2019. Now, what they have shown is that from the 1900 to present, a huge number of populations have become extinct. And the highest rate of extinction is in Hawaii. It has recorded 79 extinctions. And the other one, next one is South Africa's. It has recorded 31 to 40. Third is India and part of Australia, like this one, they have categorized. Now this number of extinction of plant species is after removing all those species which were earlier thought they are extinct, but subsequently they have been rediscovered. They have carefully removed all those species from the list of extinction, and summary of that one or conclusion is that the extinction rate is very high for plants also. In fact, it is much more than some of the animal groups. So this is about the extinction rate. Coming to the threatened category, that is according to IUCN, and here they have given some list in 2017, the IUCN version, and these are a few groups. Of course, out of that one, most of them are animals, whereas only 3 groups in this one, cycads, some of the dicards and conifers, only these 3 have been given in this one. Here you can see this is the number of species that have been evaluated, and this is the percentage of evaluated species that have been categorized as threatened. So cycads, out of 307 cycad species, 63 have been classified as threatened. Out of 1,781 evaluated species of dicards, 36 have been categorized as threatened. And out of 607 conifers, 34 have been put as threatened. Now this graph shows the number of species, cumulative record of number of species evaluated, and this is the number of species threatened. This is starting from 2000 to 2017. So according to this, which was released in 2017 by IUCN, out of 96,951 species evaluated, 26,500 species have been categorized as threatened. Now later in 2019, they put out another list because they go on evaluating so that every year there will be increase in the number of evaluated species. Now here in 2019 list, out of 112,432 species assessed or evaluated, 30,178 species are threatened, and this comes to 28% of the evaluated or assessed species. So there is a huge number of plants and animals that are being threatened. Out of this one, the data which is available for plants is much less when compared to those of animals. So according to IUCN, 99.9% of critically endangered species and 67% of endangered species will be lost within the next 100 years if no serious efforts are made to remedy the crisis. Now, there have been hundreds of papers documenting extinction of species in all groups of organisms. And most of these, of course, reports come from developing countries because their intensive investigations are being done, whereas in developing countries, there is not much of investigation, so we don't have too many examples coming from developing countries. Most of these details are from developed countries. Now, on one side, the species extinction. Apart from species extinction, Earth is experiencing a huge episode of population extinction and population decline, because this is also very important as far as eco-services are concerned. So when once the population is abundant, let us say, for example, there was a population in which there were about 1,000 individuals were there. Now, because of the human activities, this is gradually reducing. Instead of 1,000 species, it may become 500, it may become 200, it may become 100, and so on. And if nothing is done, then the population will become extinct. That means it will not be there at all. Now, when once a population becomes extinct, the contribution of that particular population to the community organization and the community eco-service will be lost. And that creates lots of problems. So the population extinction will result in the breakdown of ecosystem integrity and its function, which is very, very vital to sustain our civilization. Now, there are a large number of papers about the decline of the insect diversity and the density. So this is one of the graphs which has been published in recent years. Now, this is the quantity of insects, because the entomologists, they take a net and sweep it, and depending on how many insects they catch, they come to an abundance of insects in a particular area. In 1976 and June 1977, just recently, you can see this was the abundance of insects, whereas from 2011, how much the density of this abundance of these insects has been reduced. This has been demonstrated in some parts of Germany as well as in Puerto Rico. Now, when once these insects population comes down, then in these areas, the lizards, frogs, and birds that consume insects have also declined markedly. Yeah. So this decline, depending on the area and species, it depends from 30 to 90% of these birds, the lizards, frogs, and birds that are dependent on these insects as their diet, they have declined. So there has been a collapse of forest food web. So the whole thing has become upset. According to the latest analysis, 40% of world's insect species are threatened with extinction over the next few decades. Now, in fact, the extinction of insect has become so much of a concern. One of the very famous, very popular standard proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences USA. They publish very, very standard papers. In an issue of 21st January, latest one, the January of this year, 2021, this is volume 118, number 2, they have published a series of papers in a special issue to highlight insect declines, then principal threats to these insects, and possible actions to be taken to mitigate these declines. So those who are interested to study these papers, they can go to this proceedings in National Academy of Sciences. You can download these papers. They don't require subscription. Now, as early as 1992, a large number of scientists realized that problem associated with human activities. So in 1992, 1,700 world scientists, including a majority of living Nobel laureates, gave the first warning to humanity. So they expressed concern about the potential damage to planet Earth by human-induced environmental changes. They identified ozone depletion, freshwater availability, marine life depletion, ocean dead zones, forest loss, biodiversity destruction, climate change, and continued human population growth as major causes for environmental changes. So they gave the warning to humanity, telling, unless you take care of these problems, we are going to get into serious problems. And nothing happened. Although people were talking about that one, there was hardly any concrete steps taken to mitigate these problems. Then in 2017, 25 years after the first warning, the world scientists gave second warning to humanity. This time, the number of scientists which signed this document were 15,354 scientists coming from 184 countries. They say, with the exception of stabilizing the stratospheric ozone zone, at one time, as you know, ozone zone was breaking down in the Antarctic, and that is creating lots of problems. But now it is healing. So they say stabilizing the ozone layer, there has been a progress, but the humanity has failed to make sufficient progress in solving these environmental challenges, and alarmingly, most of them are getting far worse. So this is the warning the 15,354 scientists gave in 2017 to the world. So now the most biologists agree, and also geologists, that world has entered the 6th mass extinction crisis. So if no remedial measures are taken, 2/3 of the species are likely to be eliminated within a short geological time. So they feel that window of corrective action to tackle the crisis is very short, at the most 20 to 30 years. So if at all you are taking any serious action, it has to be done within 20 to 30 years. If you don't take any serious action, then it can't be rectified because it goes beyond our ability to rectify the problem. So now they say it is a question of now or never. If you want to save the world, you take remedial action immediately. Otherwise, you will not be able to do anything. So this is a serious warning to humanity. Now, as you know, we had past 5 extinction crises, mass extinction crisis in the geological period. All these extinction crises were because of the natural calamities. Human beings were nothing to do with this one. Now, the worst of these was this one, the 3rd extinction period, which took place about 240 million years ago. In this one, 56% of the genera and 96% of the species became extinct. You can see this, the width of this one indicates the number of species in general. And each extinction period, you see how the number of species have become narrow. And in a couple of million years, the Earth has restored the number of species and gradually increasing after each extinction period. Now we are having maximum number of species, and now the impact of human beings is so strong. Many geologists, they call this recent geological period as Anthropocene period because it has been influenced by human beings so much, it is controlled by human beings. Now the sixth mass extinction, if it happens or if it continues, then this many people call it as Anthropocene extinction. Now, what are the drivers of sixth mass extinction? Why, when once the human influence is driving these sixth mass extinction? Basically, there are three drivers of mass extinction. One is habitat loss, its degradation, and fragmentation. Now, this habitat loss and its degradation includes deforestation, which is the result of conversion of forest land to grow plantation crops like coffee, tea, rubber, oil, and palm. Oil palm. Of course, this is apart from illegal deforestation and so on. Then the conversion of natural habitats, including forests, for agriculture, urbanization, industrialization, and mining. This continuously goes on expanding, and rampant pollution and extensive use of pesticides and herbicides, and then introduction of alien species which are replacing native fauna and flora. This is concerned with the habitat loss and degradation and so on. Then the other is overexploitation of biological resources beyond their sustainability. So as I told you earlier, that is because of the population increase and human greed for luxurious lifestyle. And the third one is climate change. Because of deforestation and extensive use of fossil fuels, this have led to increase in the level of atmospheric CO2, carbon dioxide, and methane. And these gases combine with water vapor present in the atmosphere and trap the radiated heat from the earth, leading to global warming. So global warming is essentially the result of release of more and more carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere. Now I'll just show some examples or photographs to impress upon you how these things work. Now, as far as tropical forests are concerned, Amazon forest is one of the huge forests. In fact, it covers 5 million square kilometers. In fact, if it were to be one country, this Amazon country, if it would be single country, it would have been the 9th largest country in the world. Of course, it has many countries all within this Amazon forest. Now, these reddish areas in the Amazon forest, it represents deforestation since 1988, just for the last 30 years. This is one of these areas which has been shown here, a small area. You can see, first of all, these contractors will cut the trees to make a road, because if they have to deforest, then they have to move these logs to other areas, particularly to the ocean or river. And they make a road by cutting large number of trees. Then they start devastating, removing all the forest around these roads. So this is one of the recent areas which has been degraded. Now, this is a photograph of oil palm plantation, a huge oil palm plantation, which may be more than 100 acres. And this has been raised, oil palm plantation. There are, like this one, hundreds of plantations have been raised in Indonesia and Malaysia to grow oil palm. This is one of the trees of oil palm. This man is harvesting these inflorescence, these fruits, which will give yield oil. And like this one, so all this at one time was made up of virgin forest. Now nothing will grow except oil palm. So this is again a deforestation, huge amount of deforestation. Of course, the similar deforestation takes place to grow other plantation crops, whether it is rubber, whether it is coffee, or whether it is tea and so on. This is just a photograph to show urbanization, how they will remove forest and build these huge cities and so on. And now, of course, this is agriculture, ecologically unfriendly spraying of agrochemicals, particularly the pesticides, herbicides, and so on, and atmospheric pollution, of course. Now, we are very familiar with the pollution because many of our cities are so polluted. We keep hearing in the television news and also reading in the newspapers. One of them, for example, is particulate matter, which is less than 2.5 micrometers. According to World Health Organization, the safety limit of this particulate matter is 10 microgram per cubic meter, whereas in some of our cities, they go up to 200 microgram per cubic meter, very high level of these particulate matter. Of course, similarly, there are many other chemicals, whether it is carbon monoxide or whether it is any other gas. So all of them are beyond safety limit. According to Greenpeace, 12,000 people in Bengaluru alone died in 2020 due to air pollution. Of course, it was much more in Delhi and Mumbai, where the level of pollution is more than that in Bengaluru. Now, this is, of course, water pollution, which is again very important. It is the pollution is contamination of water bodies, usually as a result of human activities again. So these water bodies include lakes, rivers, oceans, and including groundwater. And major sources of pollution are untreated sewage, industrial effluents, and agriculture runoff. And as you are all familiar, they pose serious threat to the health of humans and other animals and the environment. So this is another problem for the sixth mass extinction crisis. Now, in recent decades, plastic pollution has become very, very important. As you know, everywhere this plastic pollution is, right from the top of the Mount Everest to the bottom of the sea, you find plastic pollution. And most of the plastic pollution is made up from non-renewable sources. As much as 6% of the petroleum and natural gas is diverted to manufacture plastic items. About 260 million tons of plastic is produced per annum. And very little is recycled, and most of this plastic is disposed as waste. As all of us know, plastic products are non-degradable and adversely pollute both terrestrial and aquatic environment, that result in their effect on all organisms, including humans. So about 8 million tons of plastic ends up in ocean each year and kills more than 100,000 marine animals annually, along with millions of birds and fishes. So the damage caused by plastic is so huge, whether it is for human beings or for any animal, whether it is aquatic animal or the terrestrial animal. So according to Greenpeace, around 267 different animal species suffer from entanglement and ingestion of plastic debris. So this is another serious problem humanity has to deal with. Now, about the habitat loss and degradation. Recently, in March 2018, intergovernmental, of course, many of the international agencies are taking this into consideration and see what best they can do. One of them is Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, which is generally abbreviated as IPBES. They released a summary of 3-year assessment report on land degradation. prepared by 100 experts coming from 45 countries and scrutinized by 200 external reviewers. Now, the following are the highlights of the report. So the report says worsening worldwide land degradation is the main cause for loss of species and ecosystem services. It undermines well-being of 3.2 billion people. And it is a major contributor to mass human migration and increased conflict, and also a major contributor to climate change, with deforestation alone contributing about 10% of all human-induced greenhouse gas emissions. The combination of land degradation and climate change is predicted to reduce global crop yields by an average of 10% and up to 50% in some regions by 2050. And also it results in the decline of nutritional value of crop species. For example, in rice, it has been shown that these land degradation and climate change result in the decline of proteins, iron, zinc, and vitamins in the grain. So these are all serious problems associated with land degradation. Then over exploitation of bioresources. Then the more serious overexploitation is concerned with animals, that is hunting and poaching of animals. So a variety of animals, particularly vertebrates, are hunted for their meat, for their hide, for their medicinal and ornamental value, and they are hunted as game species or for export market. And sometimes these animals happen to be agriculture pests or predators of domestic animals. Then again, human beings kill them. And another problem is many live animals, particularly birds, are collected for pet trade. Now, this overexploitation takes place not only for local use, but also for export. According to an estimate, 30% of the global species threats are due to international trade. Now, just in February 15th, issue of Nature, Ecology and Evolution of this year, just about a month back, one of the papers, this Martin et al., they analyzed 31 papers on trade-driven decline of 452 species of mammals, 36 species of birds, and 18 species of reptiles, and found 76% decline due to national trade and 66% decline due to international trade, of course, in some animals when compared to the others and so on. The decline was observed even in the protected areas. It is not just hunting is there in the open area, but it is there even in the protected area. Then the global wildlife trafficking generates an estimated US $5 billion to $20 billion a year. So this is a huge international market or international trade for animals. Now I'll just give you one or two examples. There are many examples, of course. So Himalayan musk deer, you know, many of you that we have a musk deer. Here, the males, they possess musk pod in the abdomen and they emit sweet, persistent aroma. There's a great demand for this musk pod in the cosmetic and related industry. According to IUCN, each kilogram of this musk pod fetches $45,000 US. So each pod weighs about 25 grams, it fetches about $1,000 just per pod. So the animals are extensively poached, particularly in the Kedarnath Wildlife Sanctuary of Himalayas. Here, from a distance, you can't make out whether it's a male or a female. The musk pod is present only in the male. They simply kill it first and then find out if it is male, they take it, the musk pod. If it is a female, they simply throw it. That's how now they have become threatened, these musk deers in the Himalayan region. Now, recently, until now, the donkeys were very happy. Nobody bothered except for trade purpose, for carrying luggage and so on. But recently, Chinese have started using the hide of these donkeys in one of their medicines called Igio. This is a traditional Chinese medicine. With the result, over the past 6 years, Chinese traders have been buying the hides of millions of butchered donkeys from developing countries, particularly from Africa, and shipping them to China to extract these medicine. So to satisfy Chinese appetite, African donkeys are stolen and slaughtered in Kenya. So now even donkeys cannot live in safe this one. Earlier, nobody used to bother them except their trade for carrying weight and so on. So this was published in 2019, Science, highlighting what is happening and concerned with overexploitation. Now, this is another interesting one. In Paris, there is a bird market which is more than 100 years old. There all sorts of birds are sold, and this is internationally known. So it has been a magnet for Parisians as well as international tourists. And now it has become, in recent years, it has become an epicenter for bird trafficking, including number of endangered species. So when once people have realized, particularly the animal lovers and conservation biologists, they have brought pressure on the city of Paris, and the city has now decided to close this market. So from next year, this market will not be there, which has been there for last more than 100 years. Now, some of those people who have been selling these birds that have been their living for generations, they are telling that what will we do? Because we don't know anything except selling the birds. And now the city has agreed to give them alternative jobs, but in any case, from next year, they will be closing this one. So this is one of the outcomes of the pressure exerted by conservation biologists and bird lovers and so on. Now, coming to the extraction of plant resources, of course, there are so many examples. I don't have time to give all the examples. As you know, collection of non-wood forest products. It may be gums, it may be resins, it may be fruits which are of economic importance, it may be sources of medicine. This is, of course, a huge number of species. Yield medicine, and these medicines are collected from the naturally grown plants, not from cultivated plants, and they are grown for natural habitat. As the more and more of these resources are collected, then the species will become threatened, and many of them have already become threatened almost to the level of reaching the point of extinction. Now, another interesting example is teak. We have a lot of demand for teak wood in India. In fact, India and China are the main countries that receive the illegal timber extracted from Indonesia and Malaysia. So those people, illegal timber is cut there and they are selling it to India and Malaysia because the demand in India for teak is so huge. And teak is not a native to Ecuador. Ecuador is a small country in the western part of South America. In fact, Galapagos Islands belong to Ecuador. Now, for the last many years, they have started growing teak by removing the forests and the agriculture land and started growing the teak exclusively for export its timber to India. So look at this. So the forests and agriculture lands are getting degraded or reduced because they want to grow teak to export to India. Then, of course, climate change is the major driver of the mass extinction of species. So increase in atmospheric CO2 level result in increase in the mean global temperature, as I have been telling. Now, the increase in temperature has lots of consequences. It will trigger disappearance of most of the remaining glaciers and melting of Arctic and even Antarctic ice. It results in the increase in the sea level, rise in the sea level, and submergence of smaller islands and most of the coastal areas. So when this happens, the biodiversity in such islands and coastal areas become extinct without even giving a chance for their conservation. So within a short period, they will get submerged and you can't do anything about the fauna and flora which are there. Now, one of the examples of these islands which will get submerged when once the sea level increases is in the Pacific Ocean. So between Papua New Guinea and Australia, this is the tip of northern Australian part, there are a large number of islands in this area, Pacific Ocean. Now here, many of these islands, they are almost at the level of the ocean water level. One of them called Mosaic and a few other islands, they are inhabited by indigenous Australians. And here you can see for the last couple of years, they have lost a lot of the marginal land already. If the ocean rises another 1 or 2 feet, then this one will get submerged. They don't have any land at all. So in fact, they have gone to UN complaining that Australia is not taking any measure to control the rise of sea level and so on. So these are some of the serious problems faced by a large number of people because of the consequences of global warming. Now this impact of the rise of atmospheric CO2 in ocean, not only it increases the temperature, it also increases the concentration of CO2 both in the atmosphere. Here you can see in 1960 to 2010, the increase in the atmospheric CO2. In fact, in pre-industrial level, the carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere was 280 parts per million. Now it is 220, it has reached 400 parts per million because of the release of too much of the CO2 into the atmosphere. Now some of this CO2 dissolves in seawater, and the water CO2 also increases. This is what is happening. And because of the CO2, the dissolves and it increases the acidity, the carbonic acid. So the pH of the seawater, it comes down. So both of them, increase in the CO2 as well as decrease in acidity, has serious consequences on animals which are living in the sea. So current temperature of ocean in general is average about 26 degrees Celsius, and current acidity, the pH is 8. And if present trend continues, then by the end of the century, the ocean temperature will become 30 degrees Celsius and the pH will reduce to 7.5. This is going to be catastrophic for all the animals which are living in the ocean. Now, one of the important consequences of this high temperature is on the coral reefs. Corals are very sensitive to heat and as well as acidity. Even if an increase in 2 to 3 Fahrenheit above normal can kill these corals. So as you know, corals are the combination of algae and the animals, coral, and algae will provide food. They are symbiotic organisms. When once the temperature goes up, the algae will die and the coral will not have any food, and then it decolorizes, it bleaches. So this is the healthy coral of one of the species. This is the same species after bleaching. And once it dies, then of course it can't regenerate at all. So the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, all of you have heard of it, is the world's largest coral reef. As a result of global warming, nearly 1/3 of the Great Barrier Reef's corals have been killed. Now, this has altered the assemblages of its coral species. So the number of species and the composition of the coral reef species has changed. According to experts, if greenhouse gas emission continues to be at the current rate, the reef will be unrecognizable in another 50 years. So this is the consequence of global warming. Now, this is just to give an example. This is a healthy coral reef, of course, one of the old photographs. And this is a damaged coral reefs. You can see all of them have bleached. This is part of the Great Barrier Reef after mass bleaching. In fact, Great Barrier Reef of Australia, it has very important tourist attraction in Australia. It provides, it seems, 70,000 jobs and earns billions of dollars through tourism industry. So when once this happens, all the bleaching, probably the Australia will lose large number of jobs as well as the dollars that the tourist industry fetches. Now this is just, you can see, this is Australia. This is the Great Barrier Reef from here up to here. Now this is Papua New Guinea. So apart from Great Barrier Reef, of course, there are lots of corals, of course, much smaller throughout the world. And the UNESCO has tagged World Heritage Coral Sites. These are World Heritage Coral Sites. Here you can see very few blue spots are there in which no bleaching is observed. And here yellow ones or moderate bleaching is observed. And most of them are this red one, which is severe bleaching is affected. So coral reefs, as I told you, they apart from the tourism factor, they provide suitable habitat for thousands of other species, whether Great Barrier Reef or all these corals reefs provide thousands of sites for or habitats for other species, hundreds of species, including sharks, turtles, and whales. If corals die, the whole ecosystem will get disrupted. So it is not affecting just the coral reef, the increase in temperature. It affects the whole ecosystem. Now there is another international organization that is again intergovernmental organization. They named it as Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC. And they keep on giving the assessment report at different intervals. And their 5th assessment report was released in 2014. And according to this assessment report, they projected an increase in the mean global temperature of 3.7 to 4.8 degrees Celsius by the end of this century, 2100. This is too much. Now we have already increased 1 degree Celsius more when compared to pre-industrial level. That is, 1850 has been fixed as the pre-industrial level, whatever temperature was there. So in the absence of new policies to mitigate the climate change, by the end of the century, we should expect 3.7 to 4.8 degrees Celsius. This is a huge increase. Now, and once the report was released in 2014, in 2015, all the governments of the world, they met in Paris and they come up with what is called Paris Agreement, which is very well known throughout the world on climate change. This was adopted in 2015. And according to this agreement, all the governments agreed formally to limit temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial level by the end of the century. So by 2100, the temperature should not go beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius because they realize the consequences of increase in the temperature. So they agreed that we'll take all possible precautions to see that the increase in temperature is within 1.5 degrees Celsius. Now, soon after they came out of the meeting, when they met, they discussed with the scientists and so on, the possibility of achieving this goal was seen almost impossible, because simply they said, we can't do that one. So, because on the basis of present emission scenario. So they thought, they came to a sort of a understanding that the realistic aim has been to limit the warming to 2 degrees Celsius. So let us say that 1.5 degree, although it is officially agreed, at least we will see that it will not go beyond 2 degrees Celsius. However, the present trend, even not just 2014, even the present trend, which is in 2000, indicates the increase is going to be 3 degrees Celsius minimum. It is not going to be just 2 degrees Celsius. So the reports continue to appear on loss of biodiversity and other catastrophes related to climate change. So the governments have to take drastic steps throughout the world to control this global warming. Now, 2018, the UN report appeared on climate change. They released it in 2018, October, in South Korea. So this report gave serious warning to the world. And this report was prepared by more than 90 authors from 40 countries. It was examined by 6,000 scientific publications. They examined 6,000 scientific publications before they come up with the report. And the report underwent the reviewers from 1,113 scientists. The report warns that overshooting 1.5 degree, because earlier, as I said, the general consensus was, let us not go beyond 2 degrees Celsius. But the UN report says, even if you go beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius, the consequences will be disastrous. It will have, that means if you go to 2 degrees Celsius, it will have devastating effects on ecosystems, communities, and economies. By 2040, the report predicts there could be a global food shortage, the inundation of coastal cities, and a refuge crisis unlike the world has ever seen. So these are the serious consequences if the temperature is allowed to go beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius. And the report says even 1.5 degrees Celsius warming would rise sea levels by 26 to 77 centimeters by the end of the century. And even if it goes to 2 degrees Celsius, it would add another 10 centimeters, which would affect another 10 million people living in the coastal regions. Now the coral reefs are projected to decline by 70 to 90% even at 1.5 degree rise, and at 2 degree rise, 99% of reefs would be ravaged. Storms, floods, droughts, and forest fires would increase in intensity and frequency. So this is a very serious warning prepared by a large number of scientists under the UN. So the report says that there is no time for delay. It warns the report. The world has already warmed by about 1 degree since pre-industrial time. We are currently heading for about 3 to 4 degree warming by 2100. So they say whatever steps they are being taken now, they are totally inadequate. Now, if you want to control it within 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius, coal share of global electricity must be cut from the present 37% to no more than 2% by 2050. This is a very difficult task, and the renewable power must be greatly expanded. Now, to keep that 1.5 degrees Celsius target, net anthropogenic CO2 emissions must come down by 45% from 2010 level, that means growth level which was being emitted in 2010 years back, that has to be happen within the next 10 years. And it should reach zero. Net zero means it should come down to 2010 levels around 2050. Again, it's a very hard task. So the summary of this, all this UN report is the world cannot afford a 2 degrees Celsius rise. So it can't be 2 degrees. We have to stick it somehow or the other within 1.5 degrees Celsius. Now, the report says this decade, that is 2020s, could be one of the humanity's last chances to avoid devastating impacts. So this is the final conclusion. If you want to do something serious, it has to be done during the next 10 years. Otherwise, you can't do anything with that. Now, November 2019, again, the scientists, they thought that it is going to be very, very difficult for the world to survive. So more than 11,000 scientists around the world, I told you earlier, the first warning, the second warning, and now the 2019, more than 11,000 scientists around the world clearly and unequivocally declared that planet Earth is facing climate emergency. So they have declared climate emergency as far as the world is concerned. So now they have given a lot of data models, what is happening in the next 1,000, what has happened from 1980 to the present. Now I have just highlighted only a few of them because it's difficult to read because they are very small. Now look at the population, how it is increasing from 1980 to the present. Now population increase in the just about 40 years. Then CO2 emission, how it is increasing. Temperature, how it is increasing. Arctic ice, how it is melting. Greenland ice, which has the mass of these ice, it is melting very, very fast. And Antarctic ice is equally fast, it is melting. All the glaciers are melting. So all of them are releasing water to the ocean. So with the result, ocean is bound to rise. And also, then many of the rivers will be affected because no more ice is there to melt, because our Ganga will not be a perennial river at all. It will be there only in the rainy season. Ocean heat is again increasing so much, and the pH is decreasing like this one. It has decreased. This is the demonstration. It is not a model because they have been able to measure up to 2000. From 1980, they have the data. And sea level rise, you can see how it is rising. So these are some of the, of course, there are other minor ones which I have not pointed out. So by giving all these examples, they say the anticipated problem is going to be more severe than anticipated. Now, to secure a sustainable future, we must change how we live. So this is the very basic thing which is very difficult to do because most of the people, particularly Western country, they are used to luxurious living and now they can't change the way they have been living all these years. So to conclude, the impact of human-induced environmental changes are all around us. It is important for every one of us to do our best to reduce human-induced environmental degradation, to preserve, protect, and conserve our biological diversity. This is imperative to protect ourselves, our children, and our planet. We need more and more use less people, not useless, who cannot do anything. Use less people means those who use less resources of Earth. We should remember, Earth provides enough to satisfy every man's needs, but not every man's greed. as Mahatma Gandhi. This is the very famous statement of Mahatma Gandhi, which is being repeated on many occasions. So the present generation is the first generation to face severe impact of climate change. It is also the last generation capable of taking effective measures to reverse its impact. So the time is running out to save the earth. So this is the conclusion. So it is very important that all of us, particularly the younger generation, should take this one very seriously and see what best can be done. Now we know how this huge biodiversity on Earth came into existence because of the origin of species by means of natural selection. And we also now seeing through anthropogenic activities, the vast extinction of species by means of environmental destruction. So we have to check this one, then only the conservation of our biodiversity and our survival will depend on this one. Now, those who are interested to read more about this one, there are two books which are very interesting. The Leakey and Levin is 1996. At that time itself, it was realized. This book title is The Sixth Mass Extinction, Patterns of Life and the Future of Mankind. This is the details. And another one, Colbert, in 2014, Sixth Extinction, An Unnatural History. So this is a paperback published by Bloomsbury. And 2019, I have written an article in the Resonance, volume 25, The Sixth Mass Extinction Crisis and its Impact on Biodiversity and Human Welfare. This is a sort of a generalized article highlighting whatever I have been talking today in this lecture. So those who are interested, this Resonance, anybody can download it, and because you don't have to become members or subscribe to this journal, and that will give you some idea. So thank you very much. And if there are any questions, please come up.
Sir, what were the earlier extinctions? Means you are telling sixth mass extinction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What about those mass extinctions? When
Those
they occurred or what?
Yeah, those were all because of natural calamities. Of course, we only have different hypotheses. What could have been natural calamities? According to some, it was the meteorite, huge meteorite hitting the earth, and according to some other examples have been given. Because at that time, human beings were not there at all. So whatever extinction happened earlier, 5 mass extinction, they were purely because of natural calamities, nothing to do with human. But now, if this 6th mass extinction takes place, it is purely because of human activity.
Oh, so means the 6th mass extinction is after the evolution of man.
No, the thing is,
it
depends on how we deal in the coming years. Because the mass extinction means it won't happen in 1 year or 10 years. It may take a couple of 100 years. And of course, natural mass extinction used to take more number of years. But now, because the extinction rate is so rapid, it's quite likely they may take a couple of 100 years. And if that happens, we don't know whether human beings will survive at all. And even if they survive, they will not survive in the present form. The population is likely to go down very drastically. And again, it may confine to different segments and so on. So again, human evolution may start depending on how we deal with this climate change and other human-induced environmental factors. So we don't know what our grandchildren will face, because even now you see how frequent is these natural calamities. Australia, look at the fire. California, the fire. And how many tornadoes are happening. how many tsunamis are happening when compared to earlier days. So both in intensity as well as frequency, all these natural calamities are increasing because of the human activity. So large number of people are dying.
Thank you so much, sir. This was also a very interesting episode. I have noted that your resonance reference. I'll be trying to download and I
So
will be
this one,
distributing
I have not, probably I have not sent these PowerPoints of this lecture. I think I'll send them tomorrow.
Yeah,
If
but that resonance earlier Galapagos and this one I will download and I will share in the group of the emails. Thank you so much for such a wonderful
No,
talk, sir, on
you
both
can
the.
share all my PowerPoints with your group, whoever is participating in this one. So the last one I have not sent you, I will send them tomorrow.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, participants. We'll end the meeting now and tomorrow again at the last sessions we will be joining again tomorrow. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, welcome. Thank you.